Okay, perfect. Do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'll go ahead. So my name is Megan Soroka. I'm a fourth year student at Queen's University studying global development studies and politics at Queen's University.
And my name is Maeve Avis Kozar. I am also in my fourth year at Queen's University, and I am majoring in gender studies.
That's pretty good. My name is Anna. I'm a senior editor here at University, a University magazine. I actually went to University of Windsor, but I graduated in 2019, so so I kind of avoided the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I know, like I've seen I was on the page a couple of months ago, and reading the story is really terrifying. Like even if I'm not a parent yet, but if I'm a parent, I'd be scared to send my kids to university because the stuff that are happening on campus is very scary. So my question for you guys is, what made you guys start the consent at Queen's University page?
Mm-hmm. So it honestly started more like when I started university a few years ago. And I think the same for Maeve. It's just that you hear reports of, horrible statistics and Queens is an unsafe space. And then you also see it in your friends and your peers. And it's very under the table. Like it's not talked about by staff or administration, but Queens definitely has a problem with sexual violence and sexual assault and just non-consensual behavior as well, all over campus and off campus. And we just weren't seeing any action being taken. So, and even when we reached out to administration and staff, nothing was changing. So we really just decided to take a leap of faith, and hopefully this would get someone's attention.
What inspired you guys to start the page?
A large part of it was a page called Stolen by Smith. If you've seen that, it's about the Smith School of Business on campus. So I think a lot of, like Megan had said, a lot of it was like kind of, I guess you could say it was like the last straw almost. Like we saw a lot of problems, and then Stolen by Smith really blew up. And it was great to see people speaking out about their experiences and their stories. So that gave us a lot of inspiration to start a similar page.
Yeah, I heard about this, the Stolen by Smith. Are you guys getting any kind of backlash from the university for starting this page, or?
No.
They haven't we have
at all.
So they didn't come after you guys saying, "Oh, how dare you start this page"?
We've never contacted. We've spoken to some people from the Sexual Violence Prevention and Response Office, the SVPO, but higher up administration, we hadn't had any contact with them.
That's good. Are you guys getting the story only from Queens, or is it from across campuses across Canada?
We're just focusing on Queens.
Okay, that's good. So I can't believe like the sexual assault is actually happening in this age of time on campus. Like everybody should feel safe going to university, but unfortunately, that's not the life we live in. So going forward, like are the universities providing any kind of help to students who are affected by this?
There are some. There is mental health services on campus. They aren't perfect. I don't think any university has perfect services, to be honest. There are definitely some issues, and some of the stories actually do speak about them going to some sort of Queen's Service for Help and having pretty poor experiences there, pretty terrifying experiences. So I think there are some avenues for help. There's SAC, the Sexual Assault Center Kingston, and they do have a subsection of QSAC. It is a club on campus, and there is the SV Pro, like I mentioned. But there's at least from our perspective, I'm sure Megan feels the same, there isn't enough to help meet the demand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as for the Sexual Violence Prevention and Response Office, there are currently, I believe, only 3 people employed in that office. And if you're seeing the demand and also the quantity of students at Queens, that definitely isn't enough. And one of our suggestions, and something that's been done at the University of British Columbia, is a satellite location of their local sexual assault center. And that would be great because that would allow access and also be just really helpful on campus.
Right, like the university mental health, or the counselors are like hard to get a hold of, right? I know when I went to school, like one of my friends, it took her 4 weeks to see a cat, like 4 weeks to speak to somebody. Like that is very, very long, because if something happens, you need help right away. like you're not going to need help 4 weeks later, right? So it is very alarming, and it's kind of scary that universities are not putting, even though they're collecting a lot of money from students, they're not putting that research into setting up mental health and support that they need to move forward with their life.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So what do you call it? I'm just looking at my script here. So like I heard of stories on like student being sexually assaulted like an off campus party. Is that happening at Queens as well?
Yeah, the majority of the cases are off campus, and that's why. And the Queens hasn't addressed it. They're like, it's off campus, it's not our problem. But we would disagree. It's still your students, and there's obviously a cultural problem at Queens that's allowing for this kind of culture to continue. But yeah, it's mostly off campus.
I can't believe they would say that it's not our problem, it's off campus. Like they're their student. People who setting up those parties are also their student, right? So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult when they say there's not jurisdiction over there, but they are at a house that has like their front steps are painted Queens colors. And like they are very, very explicitly associating themselves with Queens.
especially like at the frat and sorority houses. So, like so what do you call it? So are like I know students are scared of speaking of what happened to them on off campus or on campus because of fear of being blamed, right? Oh, it's your fault. Oh, you turned this on. Like, is that still a culture at Queens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely say that's a culture at Queens, but also just a culture with consent and sexual assault more generally. People don't want to come forward because nothing's being done. There's not the policy in place to protect them, and they just are scared that their voices aren't going to be heard, which has happened. So there's reason for them to feel that type of way. So yeah.
You have anything to add to the other friend?
No, I just think, victim blaming is like, it goes way past Queens. It's not only on our campus, it's in a society. It's a societal issue. And I think there's a lot of barriers in place to prevent people from speaking out, both like subconscious and very explicit. Like people don't want to go and re-traumatize themselves having to explain and argue and defend themselves over and over to every single person they have to talk to. So it's really difficult.
Yeah, that's very go ahead.
Oh, and just like you mentioned earlier, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, if you want to go get help and you want to go see an emergency service or a mental health service in any way, like you can't be waiting a month to see some help. And that's definitely a big problem at Queens.
Hopefully the universities can put a lot of research toward that, because especially after COVID, like people being stuck home, the mental health cases are going to go up, but we'll see what happens at the university. Also, like I feel like universities should have an open dialogue, like welcome the student to speak openly about what happened to them and not blame them, because I know the society that we live in, like if something happens to you and you say, oh, you'd be like, oh, you play victim, oh, this always happened. Like students are also scared of putting their names out on them, because if like a sexual assault happened and they go to court, they have to speak in front of the jury, and then their name might be in the newspaper, and they're like, oh, this is going to ruin my career. There's also one of the things that affecting the student, I believe. What do you guys think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Oh, yeah, and something I was going to add is, so trial can be very scary, and also just like not feeling heard, and I completely agree with that on campus, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. It's just there's a lot of times there's a lack of support from like the administrative side. Like a lot of times support comes from their family and their friend networks. Like it's more personal like that, but we need better support from like the legal or the administrative side.
That's
and sorry, I keep interrupting you.
Sorry, go ahead. My apologies.
Also, if you're going on campus to report a sexual assault or something that happened to you in class or off campus, it's attached to your student name and your student number, and you're saying it to a faculty. It's just a little more intimidating to know that it's attached to your student profile at Queens, and that can definitely dissuade people from speaking up.
Oh, they actually attach it to your student file?
In many cases, depending on the situation, and it's outlined in the sexual violence policy, they have to disclose your name or they have to attach it to your student file in some way. So that's definitely hurts people from standing.
That there's no privacy, then that way anybody can have access to the student file and say, oh, like they're a victim. There should be some kind of privacy in place to protect the student, like the student's identity.
Yeah, that was one of the issues with that policy. It came out, I want to say sometime last year, and there was a lot of backlash. One of the things being the disclosure issue. So the policy has actually gone back under review. I think it just got released in December. I'm not 100%, but they definitely had issues with that.
Yeah, that's unacceptable. I mean, the universities have a lot of resources. I know, like when things happen to people, they usually run to their friends or family because those people like they understand the student, like they're able to resonate. But the universities have a lot of resources, like the billions of dollars to set up programs and awareness. Obviously, is Queen setting up some kind of awareness and during the welcome week about consent on campus?
There is some, but we definitely think there needs to be more. There, at least I remember personally in my orientation week, there is discussion about it, but it's pretty fleeting, and a lot of the things are like optional. So that's one of the issues that we've had, is that we think there needs to be more mandatory like consent education, especially when you first arrive at the university, whether you are a first year student or you are transferring in or you're an exchange student or things like that.
Mm-hmm. And they do have a bit of discussion about it in orientation week. Something that we've discussed with the university is implementing mandatory consent training, consent modules in your first few weeks at school, just so there's a greater understanding of, non-consensual behaviors and sexual violence is not tolerated on campus, and letting that known to all new students should definitely be a priority of the schools. But the consent modules right now are not mandatory and have a completion rate of about 4%. So 4%. It's obviously, yeah.
That's not much. I totally agree. They should make it a mandatory, especially for freshmen or new people who are coming to university, because that way they have a clear set of like there's zero tolerance for sexual assault or any kind of behavior towards a student, and making that I think will kind of ease the university's rape culture. That's what they call it.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, okay. All right, thanks. I really appreciate it for taking the time to speak with.
Thanks for meeting with us. I'm glad that you're covering such an important issue. So.
But thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Stay safe.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye
stay safe. Bye.
Bye.